Well, welcome to everyone tuning in. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Reegan and I am co-CEO and managing principal at Arnerich Massena, a Portland-based investment advisory firm, bringing our unique and disciplined process to private clients as well as nonprofit endowments and foundations. Today, we are here with our guest to honor International Women's Day. As a partly women-owned and women-led firm, Arnerich Massena is committed to promoting and encouraging gender equality, and what better time to celebrate it than International Women's Day. This year's theme for the United Nations 2022 International Women's Day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. And it's focused on recognizing the contribution of women and girls around the world who are leading the charge on climate change mitigation in response to build a more sustainable future. We reached out to our guest, Karin Power, as a leader and force for good. She is the administrative director of B Local PDX, a community of local certified B corporations. B Local PDX helps organize regional B Corps, helping to connect them and support them in their efforts to build socio-economic and environmental impact. So I'm looking forward to learning more about Karin and her work with B Local PDX. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Reegan.
And Karin, you have such an interesting background. I mean, not only are you administrative director of B Local PDX, you're also a state representative. I know that you're also a working mom. Congratulations on your baby, I think, who's maybe 1.5 years old?
He's 1.5 now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you are absolutely juggling a lot. So I would just love to start by learning a little bit more about your background, and specifically in regards to the theme for this year's International Women's Day. What drew you into the world of sustainability and impact, and how did you find yourself a part of B Local?
Thanks, Reegan. So my background is as a lawyer. Over the last 10 years, I've worked in real estate and environmental law, both for a big corporation and then in-house at a nonprofit most recently. 6 years ago, I ran for legislative office. And at the time was one of the youngest people elected to the state legislature. I currently represent Milwaukee, Southeast Portland, and Oak Grove. And it was really a delight to enter at a time when climate change was on the cusp of, I think, reaching one of the top concerns that the American public have. It was before we started seeing back-to-back climate disasters so frequently across the country and internationally. And for me, my sort of, oh boy, I need to step up my game a little bit on this. I was elected and I was pregnant when I ran for office. So my first son was born during my campaign. And I had taken a trip to visit with some other legislators working on climate change efforts. And somebody was talking about, 2050 reports and IPCC reports and how are we going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I sort of just assumed that lots of really smart people were working on this and it wasn't something that I needed to take on myself. But then I realized we are the people taking this on as businesses, as individuals, as moms. And the thing that really hit home for me was my oldest son is going to be in 2050 exactly my age when I was first elected. And I want him to know that I did literally everything I could while I was in office. And then afterwards to make sure that the world he's going to grow up into is not on the current trajectory that we're headed towards. Mm-hmm. So that's not surprisingly with that kind of area that I was responsible for in the legislature, certified B Corps got engaged. We have many leaders within the community that care passionately about environmental sustainability. It's a core tenet of why they became a B Corp. And they came down to meet with me and introduce themselves and present the analysis and technical work that they do to show how we could approach some of these issues in policymaking. And they invited me to come and join them at one of the Build conferences. And that's when I got to meet like just this incredible community of business leaders and volunteers across the region, across the state.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it's so true. I'm a Portland native, Oregon native, and it seems like in the past 5 years, our fifth season is now, wildfire season that's just wedged in there in between summer and fall. And so you just cannot hide from it anymore. Every year we have different parts of the country in a drought due to lack of water, which is hard to imagine as Oregonians when we have an atmospheric river above us, especially this week. But then, forest fires and all of the other things that are happening. It's incredible to know that we've got great elected officials for our state that are really doing the hard work and asking the tough questions and really driving for change to protect our environment and provide a better world for our kids tomorrow. So I love that background. So in terms of your work at B Local PDX, tell us about what you guys are doing and how does the B Local community work, and what's your role in particular?
So I've spent a lot of time since I was hired explaining this to my friends and family. So for folks who don't know, certified B Corps have attained the highest level of social and environmental sustainability from a third-party certifier, global third-party certifier called B Lab. And so the little B with a circle that you see on the back of shopping bags or products or on people's website indicate that they have passed that certification test. And the companies are among the best in the world at addressing all the myriad of different issues within our capitalist society, within their purview. What are B Local PDX? And so B Locals are local chapters of certified B Corps that get together and have networking events. Back when we used to join in-person events, conferences, learning opportunities, and collaborative lunches, which I find just the cutest name, ABC groups, always be collaborating. There's a lot of bee puns, which I very rapidly learned since I've joined here. Beekeepers, for example, a lot of bee paraphernalia. I really love it. So B Local PDX is one of the largest membership organizations in the world. We have somewhere usually around 140 certified B Corps in Oregon, Southwest Washington. So it's a large number and it's growing everywhere. We know the B Corp movement really is accelerating. Our community events have been driven by an all volunteer board since they really got going in 2016, 2017. And boy, if we haven't learned anything during the pandemic, it's that the sustainability of work is critical and that folks need to be able to balance. So well before I arrived, the B Local PDX board identified the need to hire staff to help sustain the work and alleviate some of the day-to-day work that they were each volunteering to do. So that's why I'm here. They applied for a grant. They have done some fundraising over the past couple of years. And I'm one of the very few staff people on board for these benefit company movements in the United States right now.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I'm proud of Portland to hear how we're advancing the organization. And Arnerich Massena is also a new member of B Local PDX. And we went through the process of becoming a B certified organization a few years ago. So I know how rigorous that process is to arrive at that. And it's something that we are very proud of. And I think is just a reflection of, people sometimes say to us, you're an investment advisory firm. Like, how are you a B certified corporation? And so, it doesn't stop at one industry versus another. And I think kind of putting yourself forward and putting a flag in the sand to say, this is what we stand for and this is what we want to be a part of. I think it's a movement, and it takes, the private side and the public side and individuals as well as organizations to really move it forward. So we're excited to be a part of that community. And of course, like you said, with COVID, we haven't been able to really do a lot of those events. So it's something that we're really excited to get engaged with moving forward.
Us too.
So what are some of the most impactful projects you've been a part of?
Well, I'd say Delta and then Omicron threw us for a curveball, like they did for many companies. When I came on board, it was during that brief window in July 2021 where we were ready to jump right back into in-person networking events. And those have been on pause for all of the B locals across the country, and I think for many, many different business associations. So in my time, I am super proud to have been part of Build 2021. It was an incredible gathering of folks, again, virtually, and some of the most inspiring speakers I've heard across all different business sectors. And I think that's the power of the movement. It doesn't matter what type of work you do, odds are there's a company that is certified that does that work and is leading on how to transform the way you do that work. So I found that incredibly inspirational, and gratitude to all the volunteers and speakers who helped pull that together.
Mm-hmm.
We also have spent a lot of time over the last fall and over the winter thinking strategically about how we come back together in a way that might be the same and also might be different as a community. People's volunteer engagement appetite, I think, will shift. We're really prioritizing quality over quantity of work. And we know that the B Corp movement misses each other here.
Mm.
So understanding that people are still working remotely, some of the things I'm super excited about have been launching the membership program, which is the first in the nation. And so we're serving as a model for other B locals to look at sustainable membership options so that we can do more events. But it's not just events, it's how do we engage the community and scale our impact, scale networking opportunities, and scale opportunities to collaborate, and explain to your average person on the street what is a B Corp and why is it important, what distinguishes somebody who's attained that versus other companies that haven't. I'm really excited about some of the thought work. We've used some of this quieter time than we had anticipated to really think about how we use 2022 and the movement to more deeply engage in the community and deepen the impact in Portland and Oregon and Southwest Washington. So I'm excited for the things that are to come, because there are so many inspirational leaders in the state contributing within their own companies. I can't wait to see what they all do together.
Mm-hmm. And it sure does seem like a time where we need a lot of positivity and collaboration and inspiration from our leaders too, because Portland and the state in general, I think is obviously in interesting times with just sort of what's happening in 2022 as we recover from the pandemic. Well, so Karin, what would you say you are most proud of in your role or being part of B Local PDX?
I think I'm mostly grateful to have had this opportunity to step in as the first staff member, and gratitude for the level of work that board members have been shouldering over the last years to continue to build an intentional community of people who care deeply about making the world a better place. It is an absolute honor to be helping to sustain that work and taking, frankly, some of the administrative things off of board members' plates, allowing them to think more strategically without having to manage the back end Zoom, which I feel like we can all appreciate after 2 years of Zooms.
Yeah.
And I am just super proud to be here in this community. I think people really crave authentic, meaningful work. And this is exactly what this movement's about.
Well, that's wonderful. speaking to all the women out there who want to work toward a more sustainable world and a healthier planet, are there any actions you would suggest to help them on the path?
Oh my goodness, Reegan, I'm so glad you asked me this question, because the sustainability of engagement is something that I care deeply about. You can easily burn yourself out just looking at the news, and with the sheer amount of natural disasters Oregon has sustained alone over the last couple years, uh, I think somebody joked like we're just ready for locusts at that point in time. It's like the last thing that we haven't gotten. But then we
After
did.
murder hornets,
did.
didn't we have murder hornets?
So I read an anthology, a climate anthology by women leaders called All We Can Save. And honestly, that is my number one. It is a literary piece that includes short pieces, poems, art, and I found it so helpful to recenter myself in women in this movement, because so often within the environmental and conservation movements, they are led by not women. And especially as a mom, I can find that sometimes really daunting to feel like every little thing that I do is going to matter for my kids, and where do I even begin? So that is one of my grounding books that I read when I need to pick me up. And I'd also suggest there are incredible emerging leaders, especially women of color, scientists, thought leaders, researchers, youth activists, and both following them to see how they're lifting up each other's stories and highlighting the scale of the need, but also that this is a solvable problem, right? I find inspiration from that on days that feel hard. And lastly, I think especially environmental justice has been underfunded because of this split in the environmental field, right? We are one of the few sectors where the people at the heart of that around justice are different from, conservation and mainstream environmental movements. I think that is beginning to change because of the need to bring everybody together to address climate change. But funding the people who do this work, especially frontline work, will help to deliver the next generation of leaders that we need. So those are the things that I would recommend.
Wow, that's so interesting. And the name of the book again is All You Can Save.
All We Can Save.
All We Can Save. Okay, I'm gonna go to my local bookstore and pick up a copy of that. Thank you for that answer. That was absolutely lovely, and it has been an absolute pleasure and joy chatting with you today, Karin. What a phenomenal role that you are playing for the B Local PDX community, but also in your official position as an elected representative, and just all the work that you're doing to affect change. You are absolutely an inspirational female leader, and thank you for being with us today as we talk about International Women's Day. So any final thoughts or comments before we wrap up today?
This was just such a joy to get to meet you, and for highlighting International Women's Day.
Absolutely. I look forward to staying in touch with you. And for all of our listeners out there, what's the best way for people to find you and B Local PDX?
The best way to contact us is our info@blocalpdx.com. And you can find us on the web at blocalpdx.com as well.
And it is a beautiful website. So for all of our listeners, you would know where to find us. You can visit our website at arnerichmassena.com and check out our blog for more interesting podcasts and articles on relevant topics. Thank you, Karin, for being here today. And thank you to our audience for joining us. And happy International Women's Day.
Thank you for listening to Arnerich Massena's podcast. Please see the podcast description for important copyright and disclaimer information.